On today's show, the 2026 NBA draft is of great interest to fans of the Atlanta Hawks, and we'll get into all of that today in a two-part conversation with myself and Ben Pfeifer. It's coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Locked On Hawks podcast. My name is Brad Rowland. I'm the host of this show, and today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit FanDuel app right now and start planning your futures bets right now. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check us out and subscribe to the show anywhere you find your podcast, and of course, tell your friends about the show as well. I'll be joined in a moment by my friend Ben Pfeifer, NBA draft connoisseur. Ben does a great job covering the draft all year round. And today we're diving into a two-part conversation with Ben about the top of the draft, in particular, that Hawks, Pelicans, Bucks pick looming out there for Atlanta, plus some guys that he likes a little bit deeper into the draft as well. Again, this is a two-parter. So this is part one they're about to hear. Part two will be available in this same podcast feed as soon as part one is over. And without any more delay, here we go with myself and Ben Pfeifer. I'm joined now by good friend of the podcast, Ben Pfeifer. Ben, I pledged this year to ask you to come on the podcast more than twice. And usually it's twice. Maybe this extra one will be the extra one. How are you?
I'm doing well. As I told you, I got home from a travel day, which is not really like 20 minutes ago, but it's not really like, I think of cross-country flights, it's like you're basically losing a day. But if it's like a less than an hour flight, it's so light work. But yeah, just got home and I'm excited to talk some hoops.
Yeah, so I figured it was time. I mean, I've been putting it off a little bit, trying to wait till like the actual dead zone of the summer to discuss some 2026 draft.
I think we're kind of there.
I think we're kind of there, which is why I'm doing it now. And also, as the Hawks might be good this year, normally that would mean that you would do a little bit less draft, but they have the blessing, at least the potential blessing. I'll be charitable. The potential blessing of that Pelicans pick.
It's a blessing, brother.
So the Pelicans pick, if everybody has been asleep, it's unprotected. It's the better of the New Orleans and Milwaukee. I think New Orleans is going to be worse than Milwaukee. Most people do, but one Giannis cycle turn and Milwaukee's pretty bad too. So they kind of have a double chance at this thing. And I say all that. I poked fun at you before I started recording. I'll do it now. You used to kind of cover the Pelicans. I know you don't anymore, but I did think of that when I was getting ready for this podcast. Because look, I mean, you cover the whole league. Do you have a Pelicans take? Do you have how bad are they going to be take? Because
I've honestly
there's a whole spectrum
over the last couple years, like you said. I cover them, and I just I said this before we were recorded, but it's like the Interstellar meme with the guy looking back in time, which me at 17 being, I'm going to pick the Pelicans. They're going to be a fun up-and-coming team. They'll probably be in the playoffs all the time, and I'll get to watch Zion, and I'm like, no. But, yeah. I mean, I like a lot of their individual players, but I feel like the environment for them to develop is pretty awful. And the whole Zion stuff just makes it even all the more unserious, that organization. It's my temperature on them is very low, even though they have good players. I love Herb, love Trey. They picked two of my favorite. It's honestly crazy. That tells you how insane that trade is. Where I had Derek Queen third on my board.
Yeah,
and even
you love Derek Queen.
Oh my God, they gave up what?
That actually is. I forgot that. I forgot how much you loved.
If you're going to give up an unprotected first in a loaded draft, when you yourself is very shaky in a great conference, I guess it at least should be a player who you think is an elite top 3 kind of guy, which I definitely did think of Queen. But I can say that as just a guy who sits at his computer and watches basketball and writes about it. But if I am the one who will bear the responsibility for that decision, no chance in hell would I ever do that. And the Hawks, I think because of that alone, they get an A+. They got their guy supposedly who they wanted Asa all along. That was their master plan.
Well, yeah, I've made fun of that. I don't think that's necessarily true. Like, they like Asa, just for the record.
That just makes it sound better. That
it does make it. That's exactly what it was.
They fleeced the Pelicans and they got their guy all along.
They did. I will say they did consider Asa at 13. I don't think they were going to take him, but it doesn't really matter. They got a guy I liked. No, it's actually funny. I was going to ask you about that at some point, just because it ties in as to why we'll talk as much as about the top of the lottery as we're going to. Because look, if the Hawks didn't have the Pelicans pick, we probably wouldn't do a ton on the top three, because it's like it's a swap. They owe their own pick to the Spurs, so their own pick has like 0 upside this year. The Pelicans pick has number 1 overall upside, which is interesting. But I just looked. Our friends at FanDuel, who sponsor this podcast, have the Pelicans over-under at 29.5 wins. A team with 29.5 win over-under trading an unprotected pick.
Tankathon has them at 9th, but like outside of Utah, Washington, and Brooklyn, I could see I could see Charlotte being better than them. I could see Portland being better than them. And the Suns, I don't know. The Kings, I could see being better than them, just like more mediocre. But like, there's a real chance that they are. I'd say more likely that pick ends up in like the 5 to 8 range, which is still going to be awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's still a huge win. And just you do that trade 100 times out of 100, obviously. But there is like you don't have to jump up as far as Dallas did this year to get into a draft where the third guy, assuming their seasons go how we expect, is as good as the number 1 guy in a lot of drafts. It really is the case, I think.
Yeah. And we'll get into that for sure. But because you said it, I want to just make the point, because I make the point all the time, but sometimes people think I'm being a homer or something, which is funny because I'm not really like that. But about the trade, I keep saying I cannot find a person that I know in the league, works for a team, agency, scout, whatever, writer like yourself, who didn't like the trade for the Hawks. Like, there's no one. It doesn't exist. And because you made the point, I forgot how much you love Derek Queen in the moment. Like, you love Derek Queen. Like, compared to everybody else, you were very high on Derek Queen. And you still gave it an A+ just now for the Hawks. You keep that in mind, everybody. Like, even if the Pelicans get the Derek Queen pick right,
I've been very and like I've been very consistent with this. I'm looking at it right now. After the 2019 draft, I remember people getting on me for giving the Hawks an F, which maybe was a little harsh. But if we don't remember what they did, they traded picks 8, 17, and 35 to move up 4 spots to pick DeAndre Hunter. They
also took back Solomon Hill on the deal, which was dead money.
They drafted Cam Reddish at 10, and then they traded. Did some second round trading, and I was like, I don't hate the players. I actually did not love Reddish or Hunter, but it's like the asset management is just criminal. And I feel that way. I mean, that trade is not as bad as what the Pelicans, not even close. I mean, they didn't give up future first. Like, they give a lot of picks, and I think I really am of the school of thought these days where it's just like, I want as many swings as I can get. I think that's really valuable, just because as confident as we can feel, we can't know for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the 2019 draft was funny. I mean, this is a long time ago now, but I liked Hunter a decent amount and still hated the trade. And people couldn't understand what I was saying. And it's like, guys, you could like the player and hate the transaction.
Now Hawks fans are on the other side of this.
Well, it's exactly. And even to your point, and way more the other way, like way more egregious, unprotected pick, all that fun stuff. So we've teed it up. Now I have to ask you about the 26 class. Today's just brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't even name all their potential accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks or properties or investments. If you know the full the picture of your finances, actually, it's possible to leave money on the table, and that is why Monarch Money is there for you. It's the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. And Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet yourself. And for me, I linked all of my accounts together to Monarch and immediately spotted a few times where I was actually spending money that I didn't even know I was spending on subscriptions that I wasn't even using. Canceling those alone saves me money each and every month. And Monarch Money also make it simple for you to review your finances with your partner if you want to. You can see both your budgets at the same time, your goals, your spending activity, all in one place. And don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year with Monarch Money. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. Let's start at the top because especially at this point in August, people that are non-diehards have not probably heard of anything in this class other than the three guys who are considered to be in the mix for number one overall. That's probably fair. Just to name them: Darryn Peterson, Cameron Boozer, AJ Dybantsa. Ben, I'll ask you. I think I know the answer. Is that your top three? Is that like kind of the big three you have as well? Because most people that I've talked to have that kind of as the clear top three. Are you one of those people?
For sure. I've landed in the place where I have a certain order of how I view these three, but I think they're all very good. And any order of the three I can understand. Though there's one guy who I think is kind of pulling ahead for me a little bit. I might have like a little half tier ahead, which we'll get into.
Ooh.
But generally speaking, like people who have the other two who I don't think are number one, like I get it. It's not crazy to me. All of these guys would have been like the easy number two pick last year over Harper, in my opinion. I don't think that's close. I think they all would have been the top pick in 2022 easily. I think they all would have contended, if not easily, been number two in 2023. Like these are all phenomenal prospects. And yeah, like I said, I have I think Darryn Peterson's the best guy, and then Cam Boozer, and then AJ Dybantsa, which is something I've tweaked over the years, but it's just such a ridiculous top three, and all three guys have just crazy high ceilings and are just insanely good.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because this past draft, Cooper Flagg was kind of like the guy for almost everyone most of the season, right? Like the clear number one. Obviously Wemby the year before. How do these guys stack up? I mean, you kind of mentioned it there, but like, are any of these guys on that Flagg level? I mean, Wemby's probably another half tier above that even. But like, how do you stack up? And let's say Peterson. You just said Peterson's your number one guy. Like, how does he compare to the recent number one overall picks as far as like pre his first college? Because obviously we're still almost a year in advance of the actual draft.
It's tough. It's tough to compare with Flagg because I'm like, my answer is always like, oh, probably just Cooper because I saw him dominate college. Even probably like same tier as Flagg, maybe a tick below for Peterson, and then again like a half tier below for Boozer and Dybantsa, but still in that same range. And again, Flagg was obviously crazy dominant, and we saw him do it in college. I think all three of these guys have a chance to do it in college, and all three I think are in situations where it's going to be easy for them relatively to look great. So
yeah. No, it makes perfect sense to me. If you don't know, and look, I know we have listeners that don't follow this stuff at all, especially until the end. Peterson's going to Kansas. Boozer's going to Duke. Dybantsa's going to BYU, which is definitely not what you would normally think, but that's where he's going.
There's some money in there. There's some money.
Yeah, I was gonna say getting paid a lot of money. And all these guys are, and it's above the table. And there's this is kind of the last bastion of the pre-house case college, like where like money was like really, really able to flow very freely to all these guys. Let's just talk. I guess we'll talk about Peterson first because he's your number one guy. 6'5" is that what his listed at? 6'5" guard,
something like that. Yeah.
Give me the pitch. I'll do my full disclosure. Number one, Ben's always ahead of me on draft stuff. That's goes without saying. But for 2026, I am in very, very primitive stages, so I will hardly ever weigh in here. I have a couple thoughts on the top guys and the returners I've seen. Like LeBaron Fowler, I'm sure
we'll talk about returners for sure.
But just to give the disclaimer, I'm going to lean heavily on Ben here in August to give me the what's going on here. But Darryn Peterson, your guy, it seems. Give me the breakdown on him as far as what you like, what you may be worried about, if there's anything at all, etc.
Yeah, for sure. Darryn is truly the best guard prospect I've ever seen at any level outside of Luka Doncic, I think, who it's probably unfair to compare anyone to Luka.
That's high praise.
But yeah, he really is that good. 6'5", 6'6", smooth scoring guard who's like a next level athlete, incredible first step, unbelievable balance and agility and coordination. One of the best ball handlers for his size I've ever seen absolutely, like his ability to change speed, stop, start. He has unbelievable touch. He's an incredibly good passer. Again, not the level of like a Luka or a Trey, but I think like it's a step below those guys. Like he's definitely a better passer than the passing prospect than like a Dylan Harper or a Scoot Henderson. I think very, very easily. And then Peterson, his last AAU year, and then going into his final high school year at why am I blanking at where he played? Prolific Prep. He just turned into the best defender in the country. Like he gets like like 3 to 5 stocks a game. He's everywhere as a shot blocker at the point of attack, incredible help defender, very smart and cerebral as well, and just like mean and menacing and athletic. Like he is legitimately, in my opinion, like the very clear best defender in the country across the last year of play. And I don't think that's to be toyed with. Like in my the two guys I compared him to in my YouTube video of him were Donovan Mitchell. I think they have some movement similarities. Donovan Mitchell was 6'1" though.
Let's say he's a lot bigger than Donovan Mitchell. Yeah.
And then purely for defense, I compared him to a young Kobe Bryant. I really do think like he's one of these rare players where you can kind of compare. I'm not saying he's going to be Kobe, but there are undeniable similarities, and I showed this in the video of like the way they moved, the way they impacted the game on defense at the high school level. And I think Peterson's two-way game puts him above. I mean, I think there's a strong case for him as the most promising offensive prospect of the group. Like, I think you can very easily make that case. I might make it myself, honestly, but the fact that he can be like an MVP level offensive guy at his ceiling, I really do think he has the potential as a primary scorer. He's not like the most unbelievable finisher yet. I think he's an incredible like horizontal athlete and a very good vertical athlete, but not special necessarily. And he can, kind of rely on tough touch shots and floaters. But I think most of the stuff with his finishing and like he's not a super efficient off dribble shooter at this stage, just shooter in general from three, but like that's so common with young players at this stage. So yeah, Peterson is unbelievable. He is truly something else.
Yeah. No, I've only seen him a few times. All the things that you said make sense to me. I've really been impressed with like just the general polish, which you talked about already, but like he just is an adult already. And I mean that in the best possible way. Like the little things he does when you see him, even getting into the line like crafty wise, like it just he does all these little things that are just jump off the screen. Again, being 6'5", and the competitiveness, like he just plays like guys like this who like are this level of pedigree.
He had like 40, 50 point games this year. He was the thing about Darryn, and it's obviously going to be less extreme at Kansas, but even like he has not played with incredible teams. Like there's other, I mean, especially his AAU team, Phenom United was quite weak. At Prolific, like there's some D1 high major talent for sure, but in terms of guys who carried the offensive load, it was Darryn Peterson. And the only games you really saw them lost, like the game they lost to Fulton Nationals, was when teams just sell out and basically play like a modern NBA style defense to Darryn Peterson. And there's only so much he can really do. But like, yeah, I think he had like did he have a 60-point game this year? He might have, or like high 50s. But he's a truly, he had 61 points.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of points.
This year in a high school game. He had 58 points against AJ Dybantsa. He had 60 in another game against AJ Dybantsa. Like this is completely abnormal, even for the best high school players playing against the other best high school, not just beating up on weak opponents. AJ's team wasn't that great. We'll get into that, but it's truly stupid. And doing it all without turning the ball over. One of my favorite Darryn stats, I compiled driving stats from, what is this, 33 prospects for next year. Peterson turned the ball over on 3.7% of his drives. The only player better is Bennett Sturts at 1.6, which that's ridiculous. Maybe we'll talk about later. Just for comparison, AJ Dybantsa, we said Peterson 3.7% turnover on his drives. AJ Dybantsa is at a solid, a really good, but not as good 9.8%. And then Boozer that is still good, but not even close, 13%. So Peterson's ability to just make these high leverage plays, create paint touches for his teammates, and create threes for his teammates while not turning the ball over and while playing incredible defense. Like it really is just like a very unique package that I don't think we've ever, like at least since I've been doing this, there's no one that really compares.
Yeah, I'm very, very intrigued. One thing I will say, we'll go to the other guys. Not that I was surprised, but I raised my eyebrow when he went to Kansas, because Kansas has a pretty mixed record with these one and done guys. Like, they haven't really had one work since the Wiggins and Embiid year, which was 12 years ago by the time they come out. Like, and granted, they haven't been recruiting as many of these guys as they were at one point, but I was just like, oh, I was not expecting a player like this to go to Kansas in 2025, 26. So
it's kind of cool, honestly. I feel like Kansas is a cool brand, and I'm not a Kansas fan. I actually should hate Kansas because I went to Mizzou.
I was going to say it should be your rival, but
I feel like they're just an objective. I always thought they were a cool brand and just a cool presence in college basketball, and they will be. They're going to be in the tournament. They're probably going to do well, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah. And also, like, he might be so good it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are some guys who it doesn't matter where they go to school. Like, it doesn't really matter. Especially considering situation. If I was a betting person, I'd put significant amount of money on Darryn Peterson to win National Player of the Year. I mean, that's it, and that's cool. That's high praise for a freshman.
AJ is definitely going to have his. I mean, Cooper got it this year, right? So we just saw a player like this do it last year. Boozer could definitely do it, but I think he's just on a team with a lot more good players than a lot more like exciting high potential guys than Kansas. And then Dybantsa, I think BYU's in a great situation, which we'll talk about, but I just don't think he's as good as Darryn. But Darryn, I mean, he's going to be throwing lobs to Flory Badunga, some other like all right journeymen and some freshmen. Like, there's one freshman I really like on their team, Cole Rosario, but he's going to have the keys. I mean, it's going to be like a 30+ usage season for him,
right?
Almost surely.
I will give you dealer's choice now on who we go to next between Cameron Boozer, again, going to Duke, or AJ Dybantsa of BYU. Your choice. Where do you want to go?
Let's talk about AJ, because AJ I feel like is still definitely not the consensus guy anymore. I think Peterson's kind of lapped him, which I have been that's been how I felt for a while now. But I think AJ still like has a reasonable case as a number one pick in the future. So we can talk about him.
I think he might be, and this is Dybantsa, I think he might be the most, well, it's weird. Like, because he was number one on a lot of like way too early 26 mocks for a long time. Like, the people that are like super casual with it, like, he might be the name they know. But I was going to say that, except for the fact that Cameron Boozer is a boozer and his dad was a prominent NBA player. So maybe that's different. I feel like Peterson's the least famous of the three, which is funny. Does that sound right to you? Like,
he was also he was also Adidas too.
Which and maybe that's why he's going to Kansas.
He was Adidas. Yeah, that'll do it. He didn't play USA basketball really because of that, or I mean, I don't know. I assume generally.
But that makes sense. All that makes sense. But anyway, we can go to AJ again. Going to BYU, getting a bunch of money. He had an interesting pre-college, like, ended up at Utah Prep, which was like, I guess, was it built around him basically? I don't know. It was
pretty much.
Does that sound right? Okay. So tell me about AJ Dybantsa. 6'9", 6'10", maybe power forward kind of type. Anyway, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, the thing about Dybantsa to me is 6'9", 6'10" wing. He is one of the best athletes I've ever watched on the wing. He has some of the best first step at that size I've ever seen, which is obviously a super valuable trait. Incredible scorer from all over the floor, really productive, impactful offensive player, and just like very much looks the part. 6'9", long, crazy athletic. I got to see him once or twice in person this year, and he looks like an NBA player playing on the floor, and man, he's, according to an article by Sheet and ATL, their per 40 stats, just comparing them, Dybantsa had a 28 usage and still managed a 65 true shooting. which is crazy. And, it's going to get crazier, actually. Just for comparison, Peterson was at 34% usage rate this year, and still 55.6 true shooting, which I would say is quite solid considering. And any guesses on how many steals plus blocks, stocks per 40 Darryn Peterson had this last year?
Because you talked to, I'll say 6.5.
6.1. Maybe I oversold him a little bit, but that's still.
I was just trying to aim as high as possible.
That's still
a crazy number. Yeah.
But yeah, Dybantsa is just like a nutty shooter. Like, incredible 3-point upside, in my opinion. Like, great touch, can shoot off of movement, can pull off the dribble. He's improved. He's not like his main issues, I think, are like that he's not a super high field player, which I value a lot. I always have and always will for sure. But Dybantsa is not like a low field guy. He's just your kind of traditional Helio college star who takes a lot of bad shots, but like you understand why they take a lot of bad shots because Utah prep isn't that good. Like they have some high major talent, kind of like prolific, except they had another actual guard in JJ Mandaquit who's going to be a rock solid college player. But yeah, it was a lot of just Dybantsa ball, but he is one of the best, maybe the best wing advantage creator prospect that I've ever watched. And it's not consistent at this stage because of his advantage, because of his like kind of decision making, and his handle isn't the best. Like there are moments when his handle holds up and it's just so unbelievable, but there's also plenty of moments where he's just like can't really control the ball, but he doesn't need to be a good handler.
Yeah, I mean the size.
He just needs to be like solid enough. He's already a seasoned foul grifter. Like he does like the rip through to draw fouls like multiple times a game. I mean, it works. He very much has a star whistle. But yeah, just the ability to like generate leverage, his flexibility is bonkers. He's so fast, so explosive. I'd say for his age and builds, very skilled in general. But yeah, I mean, I think the questions for him are just going to be around like decision making, and not necessarily like he's a skilled passer. Like, he can pass with both hands. He has a lot of flashes in the pick and roll, but just from a wiring standpoint, like passes up a lot of good driving lanes and passing lanes for tough pull up jumpers. Isn't always a super willing off ball player. Like, is one of these players who's like understandably trying to get the ball at the top of the key.
Sure. Well, I was going to say, I was going to ask you like about because that's the one knock I've heard about him consistently, basically, is like he floats sometimes, motor's not always there. And all that kind of checks into what you were just talking about, like shots that could lead to shot selection issues. That could lead to some inefficiency stuff at the next level. If he does, is that all reasonable?
His defense is very interesting. Like, it's currently not good relative to like his prospect status, but I don't think that's particularly strange or concerning for a player of his age. Like, but when he puts it together in the Peterson, I mean, he played Peterson twice, lost both times, I believe. In the Peterson matchups, there are some moments where he switches on to Darryn and just shuts him down. Like his length, guarding the ball, his explosiveness, his size, his change of direction, like has the potential to be a frightening point of attack defender. But again, like you said, like the motor isn't great in those games. If you go back and watch them, you'll notice that Darryn is guarding AJ for a lot of the game. But Prolific does a lot of like trapping and doubling and taking the ball away from AJ Dybantsa in those games. But they always switched AJ off of Darryn. Like they'd like soft switch going under a pick and roll or something like that, which always was just like a to me. Like not necessarily like he like doesn't want the smoke or anything, but I just wish he was a more impactful defender considering how incredible the good moments are. Like the good moments are phenomenal. And at BYU, like they're an offense team, so we'll see how it goes.
I mean, he's got a pro coach
offense.
I mean, it's basically the opposite of Kansas, where like Kansas is Bill Self's a Hall of Fame coach, but that's a college basketball program. BYU is run by, if you don't know this, a former longtime NBA assistant coach in Kevin Young, and they run NBA stuff. And I'm not saying like you can debate on which one is better for whatever, but like it's a fundamental difference. Like, and I'm sure I'm confident they're gonna build the whole ship around Dybantsa. Like they kind of kind of have to. That's probably I'm sure that was part of the whole thing was like, hey, come on down, we'll build the whole thing around you. But no, I'll be intrigued to see if he can like turn up the dials a little bit in college. But also if he doesn't, like, okay, I'll ask you one more thing about Dybantsa. I've heard this and seen this take a lot, and I want to know what you think, because now that we talked about this, you have Peterson number 1. I get that too. I think I would probably lean that way as well for the record. I keep seeing Dybantsa has the highest upside as just a consensus take.
I mean, it's just because people think athleticism equals upside.
Is that what it is? Okay. I'm asking.
I mean, I think you can make a case for that, but I just think a lot of things that I consider ceiling traits, like feel, is just something that you can get better at, and I think you can definitely improve. But it's hard to get to, at this point, I think it's either like it's hard to develop elite, game-changing field processing stuff like that at this stage. Same with defense, honestly. Like you can definitely become good, but I think it's like I can't think of a ton of examples of guys who were just like really bad and then became elite,
awesome
top of the league. But I think you can make a case like AJ has the highest ceiling in the class just because of his scoring. If you value just number 1 options, like a primary scoring option, that could definitely be the case with AJ, that he's like a guy who's averaging, I don't know, 28, 30 points per 75 on above average efficiency. Like, he's probably going to bleed some value as a passer and a defender, but because of his scoring gravity, I think he'll have a chance to develop as a passer and a ball handler. But yeah, I think a lot of the things that are really hard to kind of train to an elite level, like he definitely has the shooting. Like his shot making is next level, no doubt. Yeah. And he can access, I mean, he can really just shoot over anyone all the time. He, to me, is kind of like, I don't know if like the player people who had Ace over Cooper Flag like wanted Ace Bailey to be. Or
I swear to God, I almost made an Ace Bailey reference earlier for a similar reason.
Like he is actually this giga special shot creator, on ball scorer, helio threat. And of course, the question with him, compared to Darryn, who I think just has a more complete initiator package because of the handling and the playmaking, and Boozer, who I think is more versatile, like. Is Dybantsa good enough to be like a number 1 option on a title winning team? That's just an extremely high bar. And like, I think Darryn could be like I'm not going to pencil him in by any means, but I think it's harder to imagine Dybantsa. I think he has more work to go as an off-ball player than definitely Boozer. Peterson, I think you could argue, honestly. But
yeah, it must just be 6'9" athlete score, like that people could just see those things, put them all together, and that makes sense.
BYU is awesome, though, just because it's just like Kevin Young, like you said, former Suns assistant, a bunch of other places. They got a sick point guard in the portal, Robert Wright. He played at Baylor next to VJ Edgecombe last year. Just like a sick college point guard, and they're going to shoot a ton of threes. They're going to run spread pick and rolls, and AJ is going to have like a 30 usage, 30 point per game season on probably good efficiency. It's going to be awesome.
All right, that is all with myself and Ben Pfeifer for part 1 of this 2-part conversation. As a reminder, part 2 is available in this same podcast feed, whether you're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Part 2 is available right now, so please stay tuned. Please subscribe to the show, and we'll see everybody next time.